Well, Atlanta coming away with the win on Monday Night Football at the Link in Philadelphia. Kirk Cousins not only shaking off the primetime yips, also coming up with some solid fantasy points. 21 fantasy points on the night. Jalen Hurts adding 25 at the quarterback position. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts getting some work for the Falcons. Saquon Barkley with 17. Devontae Smith with 20 in the absence of A.J. Brown. And, of course, Dallas Goedert, the tight end, with 6. But as we take a look at the notable fantasy performers, time now for our fantasy recap presented by Old El Paso. Start somewhere fresh. For more, we welcome in Jamey Eisenberg. Jamey, what a game in Philly. When you look at those players that we just mentioned, who's your biggest fantasy winner from Monday night?
I mean, it's a guy that wanted for the Falcons there at the end, Drake London. It was a little scary. We were looking at a second straight dud for him, and not a perfect night by far. When you look at only 6 catches for 54 yards, 9 yards per catch, that's not pretty. But did tie for the team lead in targets with 7, so a step up from last week when we only had 3. And then the touchdown, saves the night for fantasy managers. So it's a sign of things to come. Cousins said after the game he's starting to feel more comfortable, but he's not there yet. I think as he gets a little bit more acclimated to himself, coming back from the Achilles injury, gets acclimated to this offense, gets acclimated to his teammates, we're going to see the best of Cousins and the best of Drake London. So there's still a lot of work to go. Kyle Pitts was another dud, but the tight end position has just been very frustrating from the Falcon side of things. But 2 of the triplets, Bijan Robinson was great. Drake London saves the night. You just need to see get Kyle Pitts going for this Falcons, offense to get on track for where fantasy managers are going to be happy.
I think the way that Drake London reacted to that touchdown is the way that Drake London fantasy owners reacted to that touchdown. Both hands on his head. What? What? But with the winners come the losers. Who was your biggest loser fantasy-wise from Monday Night Football?
So we talked about this a little bit before we started, right? It was Devontae Smith looked like he was a winner, and he certainly was. No A.J. Brown. But I thought Dallas Goedert would step up as well. And, only 3 catches, 38 yards, 4 targets. You usually expect when one of the big 3 in the passing game is missing that the other 2 guys step up. That's what we saw last year. Goedert missed some time, and Smith and A.J. Brown step up. So we'll see what happens if Brown's able to return in week 3. They got a huge matchup against the Saints. They're going to need Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts going to need Dallas Goedert. Fantasy managers need Dallas Goedert because, again, this tight end position is really, really struggling right now. So I was hoping for a better day. I moved him up to number 6 in my rankings for the week once we found out A.J. Brown was out, and this was a big disappointment. So Devontae Smith, he filled the void. He was awesome. Dallas Goedert, unfortunately, we got to call him a loser for tonight's performance.
Well, elsewhere in the National Football League, Jamey, we had a wide range of key offensive players go down due to injury in week 2. Let's start with Cooper Kupp, who will miss extended time with an ankle injury. That means the Rams are now down each of their top 2 receivers, along with Puka Nacua, who's dealing with the knee. How does this change how you rank Matthew Stafford moving forward, fantasy-wise?
Yeah, we're probably not going to see Matthew Stafford anywhere near the top 12 and maybe not even the top 20. It's just a tough situation for him right now. His offensive line is banged up on top of things. So we saw a pretty bad performance against the Cardinals this past weekend, and that's not exactly the best of defenses. So when it comes to Stafford, he wasn't really a slam dunk starter in 1 quarterback leagues. You lose Puka Nacua, okay, he gets downgraded a little bit, but you still got Cooper Kupp. Now you lose both those guys. So it's going to take a lot of heavy lifting from Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson and Jordan Whittington and Colby Parkinson, the guys that are going to have to fill those voids. But they're not those 2 receivers. So Matthew Stafford should not be in a lot of lineups outside of 2 quarterback and Superflex league.
Now from L.A. to the Bay, 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel, he'll miss multiple weeks with a calf injury. He joins Christian McCaffrey on the shelf. What's your level of confidence in this 49ers offense to consistently put up points?
Yeah, it's declining by the second. Thankfully, Jordan Mason has stepped up each of the last 2 weeks without McCaffrey, so you feel pretty good about the running back position. And he is a must-start guy until McCaffrey comes back. And now it's up to the other 2 guys in the San Francisco offense, similar to what we were talking about in Philadelphia, right? So you lose a big piece. Can the other 2 guys of the triplets in the passing game step up? Brandon Ayuk has been awesome, usually when Deebo Samuel has been gone, and the same thing for George Kittle. So they were must-start players no matter what, Deebo in, Deebo out. But losing Deebo Samuel just elevates the status and the stock of those 2 guys. For Ayuk, he's got to step up now. Got the big contract. I'm sure he's still working through the rust of not practicing and playing in the preseason and training camp. For Kittle, we got a little scare. He had the injury yesterday against Minnesota, comes back, scored a touchdown in that game. So he's just been fantastic whenever Deebo's missed time. You go back to the 3 games last year, he really stepped up and performed at a high level. It just downgrades Brock Purdy, so he's not at the level of Matthew Stafford. You got to feel a little bit more confident in him because he still has 2 of his guys there. but losing Deebo Samuel is a significant blow to this offense. And the other part of this is that Deebo's been so good in the run game also. So now maybe we'll see Isaac Guerrero, Patrick Taylor, some of the backup running backs behind Jordan Mason. But really, this is about Ayuk and Kittle stepping forward, and fantasy managers getting the boost from those guys. Just the downgrade of losing Deebo Samuel really sucks.
Yeah, Deebo and McCaffrey, two of the most versatile players on that Niners offense. But turning our attention to Kansas City, the Chiefs, they learned that Isaiah Pacheco will miss 6 to 8 weeks with a broken fibula. How does this affect your outlook on the Chiefs' backfield?
So it's a big question mark. You know, Carson Steele has been sort of the running downs guy, and Samaje Perine, I think, is still working his way into learning the offense after being released by the Broncos, signing with the Chiefs just before the start of the season. So those are going to be the two running backs for now. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is able to return off the NFI list and could be a factor in this, backfield, because he was the veteran presence I think that they were counting on going into the season until they had to put him out for the first 4 weeks. This has been a team in the past that has gone out and gotten a Le'Veon Bell, gotten a Melvin Gordon. They've not been afraid to bring in a veteran guy off the scrap heap. And so we'll see if they go that route as well, knowing that Pacheco's not just going to miss the 4 weeks. It could be 6 to 8 weeks. And we know this team wants to make sure that they get him back for their playoff push because they're trying to three-peat. So in the interim right now, it's Carson Steele, it's Samaje Perine. I wouldn't go and break the bank in terms of your free agent budget to get those guys because we still may see something else added to this backfield. But for right now, Carson Steele would be the first guy to get. Perine would be the second one. And I think we'll see them mix and match. The best part of this, though, that can come out of this is that we get Travis Kelce going, we get Patrick Mahomes going, because we've seen them be more conservative than we thought coming into the year. Maybe losing Marquise Brown changed how they were going to approach things. Obviously, the defenses that they faced have changed some of the game plans, but Kelce's been sluggish right now in the first couple of games. Mahomes hasn't been the typical stat producer that we know in years past, so hopefully the lack of a consistent run game can open up things in the passing game.
Now, Jamey, for fantasy managers out there that perhaps have some of these players that are injured on their rosters, let's take a look at the waiver wire. Who are some of your top targets, especially following week 2?
Yeah, we touched on a couple of them. So at the receiver spot, it's Demarcus Robinson, just with the idea that he steps up and becomes that go-to guy for Matthew Stafford. If you're down Tua Tagovailoa, if you're down Jordan Love, you just have bad quarterback play across the board. Derek Carr has been awesome. So let's go get him and see how he does against this Philadelphia defense that has not stepped up with new coordinator Vic Fangio. That's the matchup for week 3. And then again, Carson Steele, just looking at the opportunity that he has. There's other couple of running backs out there also. Joe Mixon's got that hip injury or ankle injury that he's dealing with. So we could see Cam Akers, once upon a time was a very popular fantasy running back. He could step up and have to fill a big role. So not exactly the household names that we're used to, but Carson Steele, Cam Akers, Demarcus Robinson, and then good old Derek Carr. They could be fantasy saviors for you going into week 3.
Jamey Eisenberg, thanks as always for the fantasy insight.
My pleasure.
Want to win your league? You'll want to check out Fantasy Football Today. Jamey Eisenberg is joined by Dave Richard and Heath Cummings, giving you all the information you need to win your fantasy league. Download and follow today.